Welcome to Ecocentric Media's Down to Earth Discussions, a podcast in which we explore different solutions to environmental issues. Today's guest is Cody, the co-founder of Corporate Cleanup, a group that's goal is, quote, getting corporations to take accountability for their part in the climate crisis. Cody is a 16-year-old activist from Ohio and also does work with the Sunrise Movement. The group was founded by him and some other teenagers from across the United States and is now in fact gone international with chapters in India and Jordan. For now, you can find them on Instagram at Corporate Cleanup. One word, no underscores. You can find more Ecocentric stuff on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter with the username WeAreEcocentric. You can also find us on YouTube at Ecocentric Media. Well, without further ado, let's get started. Corporate Cleanup, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, I'm happy to be here.
So just want to give a little background on the group in case people aren't familiar with it. Corporate Cleanup, their goal, as we said before, is to get corporations to take accountability for their part in the climate crisis. So can you tell me a little more about the history of it and when it was launched?
Yeah, totally. So Corporate Cleanup was launched by me and some friends. The main team were Holly, Sarah, and George. And we started with the idea of an Amazon boycott because we saw that Jeff Bezos and the main Amazon shareholders were ignoring the group Amazon Employees for Climate Justice. And we grew really frustrated by that. And instead of doing just a boycott, we started out with what we called a heat week, which was a week where we, in a bunch of different ways, worked to get Amazon to take accountability for their part in the climate crisis. And that got a bunch of people involved, which was super cool. And we have been doing a lot of our work directly with Amazon Employees for Climate Justice, with Emily and Peter, who mainly run that group, and with the open letter that is sort of in the form of a petition to Jeff Bezos and the Amazon shareholders to pass a climate shareholder resolution, which would, among other things, get all Amazon shipments carbon halfway to carbon zero by 2030 and 100% by 2050. It would excuse workers in the case of climate disaster and a bunch of super cool stuff. The original open letter is on the website Medium if anyone wants to check it out. But after Heat Week, we realized that we wanted people to be able to get creative with the message of corporate cleanup in their communities and be able to target entities in their communities that were harming them in ways of pollution or water and all that stuff. So we got the first dozen chapters established around the world, and we are constantly growing, and it's super cool.
Yeah, it's also quite a feat to take on Amazon, a big corporation. And so, I mean, their 2018 revenue was $232 billion, and it's been increasing about 30% every year for the past few years. So can we talk a bit about the effect of the Amazon campaign?
Yeah, so Amazon is a really hard company to take on, especially being led by Jeff Bezos, who is one of the most commonly known billionaires around the world. If I'm correct, last time I checked, he has about $138 billion, which, if I am correct, is enough to, according to UN levels reports, to end world hunger 4 times over and still have money left over, which is pretty whack. And it was honestly kind of scary because it's hard taking on such a big corporation without knowing if what you're going to do will matter, will be seen. But our Heat Week, which took place in June of 2019, we had social media takeovers. We had a day where people went directly to the Amazon warehouses in their state to protest and to rally and to banner drop. We hit the streets and we took a bunch of chalk and we wrote about how Amazon was denying accountability for their part in the climate crisis and helping with oil extraction and a bunch of super not cool stuff. And we wrote letters that were sent to the headquarters, and it's super cool because that affected a lot to share the effect of Amazon and the climate crisis. And what's super cool is that the activist who co-founded This Is Zero Hour announced that she is going to be striking for the Amazon at the Amazon headquarters in Seattle, which is super cool, and it just shows how Amazon needing accountability is growing more and more into media attention between activists and people on social media and just people everywhere. And hopefully that this continuing pressure will cause Amazon to realize that they can become corporate climate leaders and do their part to be a part of the solution of climate change, not the problem.
Right. And Ecocentric actually made a YouTube video by Amazon. Our first video was on like a deep dive on Amazon. And
Nice.
they were doing decently with renewable energy for a little while. They had built some solar farms in like 2017 or early 2018. They kind of just stopped that effort. And I believe they actually kind of went back on it and invested in more carbon stuff. So you're completely correct in that we need to call out Amazon when they're like not meeting their goals or even backtracking on their goals. So they need to be held in check.
Yeah. And I think it's important to mention that even though there isn't like an official heat week coming up for another 2 more months, the work that we did was still important. So you can still talk on your social media about Amazon's part. You can still write letters and call and email. Heat Week is just a day when we all come together to do it, but those actions in themselves hold so much importance. And if we keep turning the pressure on consistently, then they'll have to listen to us.
Yeah, I completely agree. Even something small like not participating in Prime Week, which I didn't even go on Amazon during Prime Week or Prime Day or whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't have a Prime account. Stuff like that also has a large impact. You don't have to wait till Heat Week comes around to try to make a difference. You can do it at any time, like you said, on social media or with your purchasing power.
Yes, definitely.
So the Amazon campaign is still ongoing, basically, and I highly encourage people to take part of it. Again, doesn't be official, just don't buy stuff on Amazon. That's simple.
Yes.
But now I want to talk about some possible future campaigns for corporate cleanup. So you have any details you want to share with us?
Yes, definitely. So there's one, we have 2 main campaigns that are being launched. One is the corporate cards campaign, which is more consistent and that can be taken place at any time. You can do it with a corporate cleanup chapter in your city or state, or you can do it on your own. But what we do is we target all different kinds of companies. We target companies that are being produced with palm oil. We target companies that take place in factory farming. Target companies who have ignored their workers' demands or put their workers in bad conditions. There's a bunch of different ways that we can do it, and we write up these little cards. They can be like note cards or sticky notes or anything, and we go to the grocery store and we put them right on the item. The example that's coming to mind is Charmin, the toilet paper company. They have a big part in deforestation, and they have done a very poor job of both taking accountability for it and doing anything to change it. Their toilet paper has no recycled material at all. So you could take a card that says Charmin needs to get recycled material, and until then we will #boycott Charmin, and put it right on the product. And that would spread awareness of what Charmin is doing, or at least makes people want to look more into it. And even if someone does still buy it, in the back of their head they're like, maybe this is true, maybe this is something that I should look more into, maybe I should not buy at Charmin and look into more companies who are doing this and look into buying more sustainable. And it's really simple, and it's nonviolent, and it's so easy, but it will really make a lasting impact in people's minds on what they buy and how to buy sustainable, and look up where your stuff comes from, which is super cool. Then one that we don't have a date for, but we are working on organizing, is a march on Amazon, where organizers would go directly to the Amazon headquarters in Seattle, and we would have speakers and banner drops, and we would take the opportunity to talk about Amazon's place in the climate crisis and how Amazon is ignoring Amazon employees for climate justice. And this would be separate from the Jamie Margolin school strike that she's doing on Amazon, but it is our end goal if Jeff Bezos still continues to ignore the pressure that we are putting on Amazon. And it will really just show that if Jeff Bezos and if Amazon continues to ignore us and continues to not pick up our calls and answer our letters or do anything to make their company more sustainable in a time of climate crisis, we will go directly to their doors and they will demand a change, because we are the consumers and they have to listen to us or we can put our money elsewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Like we've been talking about before, we definitely need to hold them accountable. The corporate cards campaign actually sounds really fascinating. Because maybe it's just the environmental activist in me, but I know that for sure if I saw anything like that on any product, I would almost for sure not buy it, especially if there are other products that didn't have those cards on them.
Yeah, it's super helpful because a lot of companies that make admittedly very delicious foods like Oreo and Nutella, they use palm oil, and a lot of them use it pretty unsustainably. So I think that the sustained pressure to watch where your food comes from and to make sure that it is being used sustainably, and if it's not, then to put your money elsewhere, the corporate cards campaign can really help that pressure, because I know that Nutella is good, and we're not trying to take away the fun that people have when eating good food, but this is our future, and that takes precedence, and we need corporations to listen to us.
Right. And is that a future campaign you're doing, or is that something ongoing right now?
Corporate cards is ongoing. The March on Amazon is in the future.
So anyone can participate in corporate cards. If they do it, do you recommend they take a picture and tag you in it? How would someone go about doing it?
Yes. So definitely take a picture and tag at Corporate Cleanup on Instagram and Facebook. On Twitter, we are at Corp Cleanup, because Twitter 15 character rule for usernames, but you can totally find us on all social media platforms and use the hashtag boycott and then whatever company you are boycotting with the hashtag corporate cleanup, and we'll find it and repost it and hype you up, because we need all the hype.
Right. Sounds like an excellent idea. It's a great way to spread the message, especially in a big. If you go to a Walmart or something, or a Costco, where tons of people shop, that's a ton of visibility, more so than maybe just posting something and hoping someone sees it. You know people are going to go to these stores. You know people are going to buy these products. So getting the message out there is just a fantastic idea, and I recommend everyone does it.
Cool. Yes.
So
I agree, and thank you.
Yeah, definitely. So maybe let's go back a little bit and talk about the reason why corporate cleanup is started, and that the name corporate cleanup itself refers to the fact that, again, we need to hold corporations accountable. And let's talk a little bit about why we need to hold them accountable. 100 companies are responsible for 71% of carbon emissions worldwide. And a little background of that figure, since it's often thrown around with little context, is from the CDP Carbon Majors Report in 2017, and it's from a group that specifically tracks carbon emissions and methane emissions from many corporations. The report also found that half of emissions came tied to 25 corporate and state producers. So corporations there's a ton of impact on the environmental crisis. I would argue the biggest impact. The military definitely has an impact, but that's something separate. Military cleanup may be coming later. But for now, corporations just have this monstrous impact. So let's talk about that for a bit.
So, yes, the report, 100 companies are responsible for 71% of carbon emissions. It's thrown around a lot, but really when you think about it, like, it's absolutely unfair that 100 corporations have made the life or death decision of what our future is. And there's a lot of really great groups that are working for accountability, but most of them are focusing on the government. And the thing that makes corporate cleanup really unseen before is that we are going directly to the corporations, and if they are not divesting, if they are not taking away fossil fuel extraction and becoming corporate climate leaders, we will go to the government and we will say we are demanding regulations on corporate pollution, because it is very easy for corporations to pay off government figures and pay off people so that they don't tell on them. But we are the ones with the power. We are the 99%. We are the majority, and it is our futures at stake. And we really believe that it is not for corporations, especially such a slim number of corporations, to make the decision about where and how we can have a future. And even corporations that are not in the 100, most of the corporations that are primarily are in fossil fuel extraction, like Exxon and BP and Shell. But corporations like Amazon can be complicit or perpetuating the climate crisis, because Amazon technology is used for oil extractions. Amazon donates to climate deniers. Jeff Bezos ignores any time his workers demand climate justice or climate shareholder resolution. And because they have money, they have always been seen as the people who have power. But if enough people organize and we say, these are our demands, or we will put our money elsewhere, then there's no way they can ignore us. Because if they do, then we will put our money elsewhere, because that is the power that we have.
Right. Consumers have just a massive amount of power to do what they want to do, because these corporations would not exist if we weren't basically paying them to exist. So we definitely need to use our money where we want it to be put, not in stuff like Amazon, but in local businesses, for example, or ones that don't pollute as much.
Definitely.
So, continuing on the theme of what we can do, I want to talk about what individual people can do to keep corporations in check, because the average person might not be, might not be a climate activist, but they still want to, live in a livable world. And so, let's talk about that for a bit. So what can individual people do to keep corporations in check and clean up corporations?
Yeah, so there are a bunch of things to do. So one of the most simple but very important and impactful things to do is call your representatives. There, you can Google it, or you can call the senator switchboard number. There's a bunch of different ways to find out who your representatives are, but you can ask them to support a Green New Deal, co-sponsor the resolution to declare climate emergency, take the No Fossil Fuel Money pledge, and ask them for regulations on corporate pollution, because the government doesn't like to talk about what corporations are polluting, because very likely those corporations are paying off the government not to talk about it. And if we can't have money so deep ingrained in our politics, because that's not right and that's not fair to us. So call reps and ask them and demand of them, because you're a constituent and you have the power, and demand of them to do these things to make sure that we get a clean and just America very soon, because this is our future at stake. Again, you can take part in the Corporate Cards campaign. It's super simple. There's going to be a write-up on our website, which is launching later this August, so you can check it out there. You can get, if there is a different organization like 0 Hour, Earth Uprising, 350 Sunrise in your area, join them. If there's a corporate cleanup chapter in your area, join them. If not, start one. You can also start a 0 Hour and Sunrise chapter in your area. There are people to get in contact with them. You can reach out to them on social media or email them. A really simple thing to do, and it seems like it can be scary, and it sometimes it is, but it's really important. You can ask your city to transition to renewable energy by 2030. Your city council people are just people like you, but they are lawmakers, and they need to hear from their constituents about what their constituents really want. And you can have a petition to back it up. You can have other people come in and speak too, but it's really important to know that it's really important for them to know that their constituents are willing to hold them accountable for a clean and just transition to renewable energy. And it's really simple. If you just go on your city council website, they will either have an application to speak or a place to call to speak. And your speech doesn't have to be like big and long. It could be super simple. And yeah, it can seem scary, especially when our future is at stake and we have all these numbers of like 11 years left or 18 months left to save the climate and our future. But this is really important, and if we all get involved on the grassroots level, if we all talk to our city and talk to our county, even though the federal government is dragging their feet on climate action, that is how we can get a Green New Deal. We can get a Green New Deal by getting involved and by doing our part and calling our reps. And like, no matter if you have 20 minutes on a lunch break to do stuff or if you have days and weeks, the work you do is still vitally important to this movement. So don't let anyone else tell you otherwise.
Right, and I believe 11 youth activists are now suing the federal government in Juliana versus the United States. And if the case goes through to the Supreme Court and it passes, then fossil fuels could be just completely, maybe even banned in the United States. And even the Green New Deal.
Yeah.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was just a bartender who saw a problem with the system and decided to run against every single odd against her. And she won, and now she's pushing legislation, the Green New Deal, and a climate emergency. So it's definitely possible to get involved in your community.
Yeah, and don't let people with power tell you that you cannot have any power, because that's what they want you to think. But when you realize how much power that you as a person, a constituent, and as a voter or a future voter, when you realize how much power you have, that's when they start getting afraid. And that's when they start reforming, because they know that we have the power to vote them out or to run against them. So get involved as much as you can and encourage your friends and family to do the same.
Right. You're never too small to make a difference.
Very much.
Well, Cody from Corporate Cleanup, thank you for coming to the podcast. You can find Corporate Cleanup on Instagram at Corporate Cleanup, and on Facebook at Corporate Cleanup, and Twitter at Corp Cleanup. Be sure to participate in their March on Amazon corporate cards campaign. Even just outside their specific campaign, do whatever you can to keep corporations in check. Because again, all movements start with one person. Yeah,
it was an honor to be on here. If you want to talk to me directly, you can email me at sunriseyoungstown@gmail.com. If you want to email Corporate Cleanup with any questions, or if you need info about starting a chapter, we are cleanupcorporate@gmail.com. And yeah, keep on keeping on. And we are going to win the movement for our futures. And thank you so much, Jake, for having me.
For sure. Talk to you later.
Bye.